what actually is hijab and how is hijab addressed in the Quran. So here's a question for the sisters. When hijab is spoken about in the Quran, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually mean by it? When the term hijab is used, what is it referring to? A question for our sisters. Sorry? Excellent. And do you remember what the context was? Excellent. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that when the believing men speak to the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they should speak to them min wara'il hijab, that they should speak to them from behind a barrier. So the term hijab is not used in terms of a head covering, but the term that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually uses for a head covering is a khimar. And that is a garment that starts from the head and comes down all the way to a woman's midsection. That is the khimar that a woman wears. And then the second garment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about in the Quran for women to wear is a jilbab. And a jilbab is an outer garment that a woman will wear on her normal clothing that she wears inside the house. So when a woman leaves the house, she's supposed to be wearing a khimar and she's supposed to be wearing a jilbab, meaning an outer garment on top of her normal clothes. So how is it that hijab has now become to be understood as the head garment that sisters wear? And what's happened is hijab as an icon in the Quran and in Islam in general is the definition or the symbol of modesty. Right? When we look at hijab or when we understand the term hijab, we're supposed to understand modesty from it. So the basic understanding of modesty is at a very physical level, where men and women, we have an aura to cover, right? There are certain parts of our body that regardless, is that we're supposed to be keep covered at all time. Now you take that even further, and there's like a hijab that's meant to be in your heart, and that is a barrier that you put between you and sinning and disobedience against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what hijab actually represents. So now when we talk about, a sister wearing a headscarf on her head, but her ankles are showing, and she's wearing like yoga pants or something like that, it's completely inappropriate, and it's not hijab at that time. She's wearing a headscarf, but that's not the hijab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to discuss. Now, what I want to highlight over here is two main problems. Number one is that there's this huge discussion of, no one is allowed to dictate what women wear. And I believe that's perfectly fine. I do not actually have a problem with that. No, a man should not dictate what women wear and don't get to wear. Right? That is a woman's right to decide. But who does get to dictate what a woman wears? And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So when Allah subhanahu